historic moment in time where this, what we're doing here as far as the movement, as far as teaching something that's really never been, this is foreign to our people. Many of us never seen anything like this. And for myself, I mean, I'm not an expert in reading Codices. And I don't think, even with all the information that exists, we would never know exactly what was interpreted as far as the information on these books. Because we know what different characters mean, but in the totality, it was described, I mean, there was someone relaying this information. I mean, it's not like, even when they tell you, oh yeah, we know, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know. There's so much stuff in it. I mean, even with all the scholars and scholarly work that's been done and the writers and everything, it'll never be deciphered, and it's because, you know, this was cut short. It was destroyed, and we will never know. I mean, but we know some of it, which is better than nothing. So for us, the reason why we came up with this idea of doing the Codices is because this is basically the ammunition of our people. This is the ammunition of the information that we gather, because a lot of what does the Codex, what does it represent as far as contemporary times? It represents the information extracted to write a book on the so-called Aztecs, the Mexica. And this is what they look at these books. They're always referencing literature like this. If you find someone that's supposedly like a person that's really involved in learning or teaching about the history of the Mexica, so-called Aztec, any scholars, any writers, anyone that's really serious about the subject, if they don't know about any of something called the Florentine Codex or the Borgia Codex or any of these codices, then they're not really serious. The Codices, what it means, a codex is it's an ancient book that was manually written, and it wasn't just, it's actually obviously a word, a European word, but it's basically the codex is something, a manuscript that was written by hand or pen before the printing press. For us, it's obviously a codex is an ancient book of our people that was written down on with characters, as far as pictographic, like in an animated way, and that we use to describe different events of our lives, different subjects. Whether it was someone in Tlatelolco, a merchant that needed to document all this information, they wrote a codex. They had someone write it for them. If it was a priest, he would bring in someone called a tlacuilo. Tlacuilo is a writer, or tlacuiloque, or writers, or scribes, really. And they'll come and they receive the services of these people because they were experts in what they did. And I'll go more into it after. But yes, we are in a historic time here, because this is the stuff we have. The Mexica movement, as far as books, we have thousands of them. But these are the most precious. These are like almost like you bring in a Jewish person, and the Jewish person brings the Torah, or an Arab person brings the Quran. These are very highly important books for our people. For example, this is a volume of 12 books. And when I first got involved with the movement, and I remember, I don't know what the Florentine Codex was. And when Olin explained what it was, I remember buying it, and I kept it safe on a place. I go, in case something does happen, I tell my kids, remember, take those books. The house is burning down, you take those books. Because we gotta approach it that way. Because I remember, imagine a Jewish person at his home where he's got a Torah, which they read, and that's what foments them as a human being. That's what shows them who they are as a people, right? We got to see it that way, because we had a past, a glorious past, and that past is written down in these books. Imagine if we didn't have these books. What a terrible condition we'll be. Literally, we'll be out there as slaves. Literally, physically. And for the fact that we have this information, it's disheartening, because not a lot of our people are interested in this. Most of these people that wrote this information down or have been studying this are either European, Anglo, or they're from other nations. And it's very, people say, oh, you guys always rely on European written books. Well, yeah, because some of these people actually have the luxury of doing this. And as you will find in the presentation, most of these books were by collectors that were non-Nican Tlaca. And some of these collectors were personal people that collected, antiquarians, people that collected a lot of these books, and they ended up selling them. And some of them, they were Mexican, and they ended up selling them, their kids ended up selling these books. For example, here in the U.S. and in Texas, there's a library which has a lot of maps of they're post-invasion, meaning after the invasion, and there's a whole collection there. As you will see, a lot of these books, they're replicas. They're called facsimiles, meaning some of these books were done as copies of another copy. And those copies were made of other copies. And because maybe the original copy got lost or burned, because a lot of the Europeans did burn a lot of our books. This was in central Mexico. It was called Anahuac by a father of a friar named Sumaga, and then Landa, they were the Landa in the Mayan area, and who knows what other books got burned. Because you understand that for them, this information, as far as after the destruction of our civilization, for them it was, they wanted to destroy who we were as a people. And they realized, they said, well, we keep these books around, they're going to start learning, who they are, their past, their teachings and everything. We just want to abolish everything, wipe it out. So, luckily some of them survived, and there's very few, and there are not even over 20 books, 20 original pre-invasion codices that survived out of, imagine, thousands, maybe millions of books out there. There were around and where people used to relay this information. So anyways, yeah, we find ourselves in a great time where we're actually, we do have these sources. And how long do you think, William, the whole collection has taken to collect? 20 years. I remember buying this copy. They only made 1,200 copies of this Florentine Codex. I remember it was still about $600. 300? But it varied, right? Back and forth. Which one do you say is the most expensive?
Right now,
La Tlaxcala. The Lienzo de Tlaxcala, they only made three copies. The original copy.
100.
Oh, sorry, no, but I'm saying as far as the actual. The actual. Meaning that a lot of these are replicas, obviously, but they're worth a lot of money. Because, you're talking about 200, 300, 100, 500, 600, maybe 1,000. Like, look at the Codices Borbónico, look at the size of this codex. But it gives you an idea of how they were. I mean, the facsimile is unbelievable. You can see the leather pieces here. I mean, it's like if you had your own. Because after the European invasion, even the images started changing. Because of the whole influence, the whole schooling of how our generation, the new generation that was being born, were being subjected to European propaganda, the European art, and that's, I'm going to get into this whole thing. It's just the whole history, even the whole history of the Codices, how they ended up here, how they ended up there, who bought them, who did this, who did that. It's just overwhelming. Because there's many people in play here, many people who bought them, who stole them, who ended up in Europe because we don't know exactly how some ended up over there. We know someone tried to get burned because it ended up that some kids, I think the Borgias, they had their children were playing with some of these codices. I mean, you're talking about the real sources. And they got burned, and someone just said, hey, wait a minute. Really nice. So they ended up actually rescuing the Borgia Codex. So anyways, yes, and these are the main sources, and these are the main argument of our people. This is it. This is where we come and gather, extract the information. And when people say, well, no, it's not, it didn't really happen like that. Well, you know, it doesn't say. It says so right here.
And this may be the first time in the history of the world where all of these books have been brought together in one room. As you were saying, they're in Paris and they're in England and Spain and different places, but nobody's ever brought them all into
You're right.
one room so they can see how much they're.
You're absolutely right. If you look at YouTube, you look at this, there's not one, they're always talking about one codex. In fact, there was just a symposium that took place where they were talking about the Florentine Codex, and they gathered about 10 scholars. Someone came from back east, someone came from Mexico. And they went in, they scrutinized some of this stuff. I mean, really, you know, detailed stuff. And I said, wow, you know, but some of these people take the approach of just a scholarly work. For them, it doesn't mean really, it's just like they're toying around, they like this, and okay, look, here's what the colors, there's so many colors. They actually tell you how many images are there, how many folios, how many this, how many that. So we know that. But the approach that they take is okay. It's little English, it's Indian people. As I imagine a Jewish person studying their Torah, and they say, "Oh, it's these Jews." No, they're talking about themselves. They say, "Look, this is our past." That's the difference. It's just like when Oli mentioned the story about when he first went to Anahuac. When they walked up there, they said, if his dad would have said, look at what our people built, instead of saying, mira lo que hicieron los indios. See, that's the difference. Because we're seeing it as like, we're foreigners. You know, we're seeing it as like, okay, well, we can do anything. We're not part of that culture. We're not part of that creation. So that's what we find ourselves in the condition that we're in. That's why we speak in ignorance. We speak as, you know, like if we were European. We speak as we were, and you know, it's like this bipolar, because one time we're European, and then when it's convenient, we're Indian. Or we're, you know, but that's just a little bit Indian, you know. Now with the whole racism coming about, I mean, I remember years ago they used to say, these people, these Indians, and all of a sudden when we started asserting our identity, and they realized, oh yeah, they do look Indian. And they said, no, they're European, they're Spanish. See, now it's convenient for them to say that we're Spanish descent, you know, only because we started claiming that this is our land, this is our continent. So you see the spin that they're trying to do on us, because, you know, it's dangerous. This information is dangerous for people. It's not dangerous for us. It's empowering. This is a weapon of knowledge here. Because with this, you know, yeah, they can take it because it's material. But you know, once you read through it, that's why we encourage you guys that are the young ones, get into learning what this is. You know, take classes, get involved, become a scholar, and eventually we teach this and say, what's in here? You know, learn about this, because, you know, I gone through some of this stuff and it's just overwhelming. You know, I think it's been like 4 months just going through every book, and I'm not gonna say I know everything. I'm just trying to get the basics, okay, what it is, because it's too much information. Especially, you know, you got other things to do at home and stuff like that. But I'm saying, for the young ones, you know, get with the ball, you know, start learning, okay, this is what, okay, so look at this imagery. It's unbelievable. And a lot of this stuff is just stuff that, this represents some scientific stuff our people want to relay. And you know, here we are, looking at this document here. All we know is a priest. All we know is that there was someone who was writing this. Obviously, it's a document. Imagine you're looking at information from a scientist from NASA. And you're looking at the document. What does it mean? You know? Because it wasn't obviously for a merchant. It wasn't for someone that, you know, oh, okay, I'm going to put some sort of, you know, information that's irrelevant. It meant something. It meant something, and it's powerful. Just like this, the same way here. I titled the presentation, The Treasures of our Nican Tlaca People, Codices, Manuscripts, Lienzos, and Other Sources of the Mexica Movement, by Nican Tlaca. The pictures were taken by Nican Tlaca, did a great job with his abilities in camera. So, we're talking about codex. Codices, plural, codex, singular. Our people had books before the European invasion. Most of our people don't realize that there was writing involved within our nation, within our people. We call these books that were called amoshti. Amoshti means singular book. Amoshtin means books. There was actually a name also in the Mayan area for the people that wrote these books. The people that wrote these books in the Nahuatl speaking area, meaning the valley of what's called Mexico right now, or Anahuac, they were called Tlacuilos. Now I'll describe what a Tlacuilo is. Right off the bat, we got to talk about why is it that we don't know what these codices are? What are these amoshtis? What happened to these books? If we, a lot of our people don't realize that we had literature. Most of us, our grandparents never told us. Our great-grandparents, obviously, we never collected any of this information. And obviously there was a reason why, as we'll go through the presentation. But just keep in mind that there was an Amosh Kali. Amosh Kali means book. Kali means structure, meaning the structure where the books were held. And there were a lot of these books. We don't know obviously the exact amount of books, but they got burned, they got destroyed. Some of them were in the Mayan area by this Diego de Landa, the Spanish priest, and some of them in the valley of what's called Anahuac, in the valley of Mexico, with the Mexica, the Nahuatl speaking of our people. And it was done by Juan de Zumárraga, another Spanish priest. We don't know what other books got burned. Most likely, everywhere the Europeans realized that there was literature, they destroyed it because they don't want to. For them, it was the destruction of our civilization, the destruction of our culture, the destruction of our practices, rituals and ceremonies, and all this that they wanted to abolish. So only two pre-colonial, pre-invasion codices in Mexico or Anahuac, one of them being the Codex Colombino. 100 original that are held at this, it's a Biblioteca Nacional de Antropología y Historia. There's 100 original, and there's 100 post-invasion codices there, and 90 that are just copies of other codices. When did the codex making stop? Post-invasion codices stopped in the mid-1700s. Before that, there was a boom of codices actually, from 1600 to 1700. And only this boom came about because our people realized that Europeans were taking control of some of our land. And for them, they had to provide some sort of information, because Europeans were basically demanding, okay, well, if this is your land, how do you know this is your land? Even in most cases, well, actually I should say, in some cases it didn't work. Europeans, no matter what, took certain possessions. And basically the codices were reaffirming our people's possessions, our people's lineage to that land that they held for obviously thousands of years. So you can imagine some of our people had to go and find a scribe from certain town or city, so they could have them write this information based on oral history, based on any documentation, anything that showed that they actually were legitimate to that soil. And there's conventions on how to read a codex. There's ways of how to read this codex or codices. Obviously, these conventions were because you can imagine the codices were written for thousands of years. So our people understood these conventions. There's ways of reading them, but obviously there had to be a person reading these codices. One convention is called a boustrophodon. It's a Greek word which basically is saying you start from this side and then you go down this either horizontal or parallel. I'm saying horizontal, vertical. So as you can see on the left-hand side, you see how the boustrophodon works. That's the way you follow the reading of a codex. You start from the right side, and you go up, it makes a left, it comes down, you make another left, and you go up again. And on the right-hand side, you see the way the codices are read. Some of them are read from right to left, some from left to right. And for the most part, they're read from right to left. Also, the other convention is its footsteps, and you know where it's guiding you with little footsteps. It's like, duh, follow footsteps. And then so that is the one convention that's obviously very simple. And larger images and of were of more importance, and then basically it's telling you, okay, start here. Like for example, on the Codex Mendoza, I don't know if you can see it from here, but you see there's an eagle. Obviously, that's of importance, and you realize, okay, well, there's something going there, something's happening there. But then behind the eagle, there's a man sitting down, and this man is painted black. You know, he's sitting down, he's painted black, and we know that a person that's painted black is a priest, because there was a metaphor, there was an idea of why they were painted in black. And it's a little bit larger. If you notice that image is a little bit larger than the other rulers or leaders that are sitting. And there was also the idea that you sit down and if your feet, the bottom of your feet show, then that meant you were part of royalty, you were part of leadership. There was little icons on top of the head that demonstrated, that showed what your name was through imagery. So the Tlacuilo, who is this Tlacuilo? The Tlacuilo is the scribe, the writer, the Tlacuiloque, the people that provided the hand that drew these amazing books. And the Tlacuilo was the artist, the scribe who put the images together. In the Mayan area, the scribes Tlacuilos are known as the Atzib. The Tlacuilo had to have and know the convention, learn the process, but not just how to paint or draw, but what to draw. The Tlacuilo had to know the topography, the culture, a sense of history, theology, and all the canons or conventions to be a successful scribe. The Tlacuilo was most likely commissioned by a priest, a leader, to paint and to transcribe this information into images so the story could be related later on. So the Tlacuilo is, you can imagine a Tlacuilo had to either develop this metaphor, develop this idea and put it in print. And it's not an easy thing. I mean, just to develop something, to put it in imagery, it's kind of difficult. So the Tlacuilo, as we know now, you see the little speech coming out of the Tlacuilo. That means obviously that meant that you're talking. That there's a speech coming out of your mouth. There's words coming out of your mouth. And as you'll see in some of the codices that we're going to show here, the Mixteco or the Mixtec, oddly enough, does not have a speech clip. I mean, there's other clips that are that fall into this convention. But there's no speech glyph, and that's interesting. But the Mixtec codices go back thousands of years before the Mexica codices, which we are looking right now. That's basically an image of a Mexica, the imagery of the Tlacuilo. But it's obviously contemporary image. But you look at the glyphs. For example, on the right hand side, the white glyph meant that you spoke Nahuac. The glyph on the bottom with specks or freckles or dots meant that you spoke Nahuatl, but it was broken Nahuatl. That also meant that you were a foreigner or that you were not of that area, meaning that you probably spoke Mayan, Otomi, or Mixtec. The blue part of the speech glyph meant that you were part of the leadership. That you were either a Tlatoani or someone in charge. And then the red, obviously, what does red mean? It meant red is like, you're mad. You know, estabas enojado when you were speaking, you were angry. But then you look at the other speech glyph there's kind of like an imagery of flowers. That meant that you were speaking in a very allegorical way, or maybe there was poetry coming out of your mouth. You were a poet. But then there's also the speech glyphs that were elongated, and I've seen some of these speech glyphs in the Teotihuacan area. There's like the other area which actually use speech glyphs, and they're long, and also it could also mean that there was a long speech. Obviously, it makes sense.